Hello, Dr. Z, fellow students, and other viewers tuning in today, and welcome from
Samuel Rylee Garret,
Sydnee Collins,
Xavier Lowe,
and Isaac Hempel, as we go around the world, stopping in Germany, Peru, Vietnam, and the Philippines, examining the link between cultures and the transportation they use. This is Transportation Around the Globe.
Hi, my name is Xavier Lowe, and today I will be talking about German culture and transportation. Normally when the country of Germany comes up in conversation, it's either about war or the many forms of German cuisine. Sausage, breads, and a number of German beers are all relatively well known around the world. Add in various sweets such as bee sting cake, Linzer cookies, and dipped ginger snaps, and it's more apparent how well-rounded Germany really is. Germany's well-rounded nature doesn't only extend to their food, however. In addition to a rich history in the arts, Germany has been home to many inventors and scientists over the years. Most notable among Germany's achievements is the creation of the first practical car. Though the initial idea for a motorized cart was brought forth by Leonardo da Vinci towards the end of the 15th century, it was a German man by the name of Karl Benz who made this dream a reality. What started as a three-wheeled motor wagon, patented in 1886, soon evolved into something larger. Karl Benz went on to implement this new technology in the form of motor buses, the first of their kind. The first motor bus was designed with a rear engine and room for the driver as well as 7 other passengers. It wasn't long until the first series of buses started flooding German cities. Since then, the development of cars has gone global. German companies such as Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and Volkswagen have become internationally famous for top-of-the-line cars. Looking at Hofstede's Insights of Germany, it's even more apparent what could lead to such practical innovation. With a high score in masculinity and long-term orientation, not only does the country as a whole take pride in their work ethic, but they're always looking to the future. Though tradition is important, they have little to no issue acknowledging that things can always be improved upon. Germany hasn't only taken part in designing land vehicles, however. Germany has become well known for their use of submarines as part of their naval forces in World War I and World War II. Though they weren't the first country to design a submarine, the German U-boat was more advanced than others of its time. The Unterseeboot, or U-boats, were primarily used to disrupt enemy supply ships, but were capable of going up against ships as much as 20 times their size. This was a first, not only for World War I, but for the world, as submarines had never before been used in place of surface commerce raiders. Equipped with deadly force, one may never see these U-boats coming before it was too late. Even today, Germany is still working to advance their transportation system. They've become the first country to bring to life a self-driving train. They've been tested and found more punctual than regular trains. While not much info is surfaced on these trains just yet, Germany intends to install 4 of them thus far. Entirely operated digitally, it's recognized that these trains may not be entirely fail-proof and are each headed by a backup driver who primarily monitors the passengers' expeditions. Nonetheless, we're excited to see where these trains take us and hope for Germany's continued perseverance in the technologies of the world.
Now I would like to take you to Peru, a land of immense biodiversity. Peru is home to coastal Pacific waters, arid desert plains, the Great Andes mountain range, and the Amazon rainforests. To go along with that, Peru offers significant cultural diversity, displaying an Amerindian Indian culture with deep Spanish influence and even some African cultural influence that is heavily influenced by its native heritage. And this diversity is on display in many facets of life, including their transportation. Peru utilizes all forms of transportation, from big ocean liners to small riverboats, from airplanes to trains, and to its most popular form being its extensive roadways. Peru has 53,375 miles of road that is shared by taxis, buses, and mototaxis. It's worth noting that Peru has a score of only 16 on Hofstede's Individualism Index and only 42 on the Masculinity Index. So this culture has a very collectivistic and caring way of looking at life with a heavy emphasis on family. And this is also reflected in its transportation choices. Peru only has a car ownership of 73 cars to every 1,000 people, many of those cars being taxi. Peru has extensive public transportation with a very extensive bus system that is wildly affordable and the most utilized mode of transportation in this country, costing on average about 5 soles an hour, which is equivalent to $1.50 US. You could cross the entire country for about $30. And with the deregulation on transport in the 90s, we also saw an interesting boom in what are called moto taxis. Moto taxis use a motorcycle base. However, they have added seating that allows people to carry family members or to use this as a taxi to make money. Though Peru has a high uncertainty avoidance index at 87, they also have little long-term orientation, with that being only 25. So the purchase of a moto taxi actually highlights a growing entrepreneurial spirit that allows people to work on their own time, to be more with family, and still provide. These moto taxis highlights Peru's idea and mentality that we work to live rather than live to work, and focuses much more on family and life outside of work. With this boom, however, we've also seen extensive traffic issues. In fact, Lima has 1,000 fatalities annually in traffic accidents, which is 10 times higher than any other developed nation. So be careful on the roadways.
Hello, I'm Samuel Rylee Garret. We're going to be talking about traffic in Vietnam today. Traffic in Vietnam is dangerous, chaotic, and undisciplined. Road conditions are poor, and traffic accidents are the leading cause of death and severe injury for foreigners to Vietnam. Also, long-distance buses and trains do not meet U.S. safety standards. Culture and transportation seem tied close together in Vietnam. Using the Hofstede Insights country comparison tool, Vietnam's score of 30 on the uncertainty avoidance dimension means the society has a low preference for avoiding uncertainty. This gives the country more relaxed rules, such as traffic laws. Crossing a busy Vietnam road without knowing the proper technique is almost impossible. Also, Vietnam's low score of 35 on the indulgence dimension means Vietnam is characterized as restrained. These societies do not put much time into indulgences such as buying expensive cars. They tend to buy the minimum, such as a moped or a motorcycle. Also, most of Vietnam's roads are in poor condition. Some roads aren't even wide enough for 2 full-size cars to fit through, so seeing a full-size car in Vietnam is usually rare. This almost forces the Vietnamese people to buy smaller means of transportation, such as mopeds, motorcycles, or bicycles. Also, Vietnam's score of 40 on the masculinity dimension means that the society is more feminine and focused on working in order to live, but in the U.S., we are more winner-takes-all, and we see this in our schools as strive to be the best you can be, which is more of a masculine orientation. This masculinity shows in their roads, as they have just the minimum to survive and get around, while the U.S. has huge highways that connect everything and excellent roads when compared to Vietnam. Overall, Vietnam is very different than the U.S., and we can see this in the Hofstede Insights country comparison tool. The Hofstede Insights country comparison tool gives different scores to multiple dimensions of each country. Those dimensions can include uncertainty avoidance, indulgence, and masculinity. The U.S. had a score of 46 on the uncertainty avoidance dimension, while Vietnam had a score of 30. For the indulgence dimension, the U.S. had a score of 68, while Vietnam had a score of 35. And lastly, for the masculinity dimension, the U.S. had a score of 62, while Vietnam had a score of 40. Also, the U.S.'s higher score of individualism could account for each person needing to own their own car.
Hey everyone, my name is Sydnee Collins, and today I'll be talking with you guys about transportation and a very popular mode of transportation in the Philippines. When looking at transportation in the Philippines, we see a pretty tremendous difference from transportation in America. The Philippines have a high score of 64, which is a little higher than America, coming in at 62, on the masculinity scale, so they have a little more intense of a work in order to live view on life. Their very low score of 42 on the indulgence scale reflects their little care for having the nicest cars and road systems, and also their high value on public transportation. One popular form of transportation in the Philippines are jeepneys. Jeepneys are these really cool bus vehicles you see on screen. Historically, these are American war jeeps that were left after World War II. These jeeps have been modified to seat many more people. They are extravagantly painted and decorated on the outside and have very basic controls. As you can see on the screen, modern jeepneys give much more of a tour bus look, like what you would find in America, but the older jeepneys, like you can see on the screen, are very decorated on the outside. Jeepneys make up about 40% of public transportation and are popular among the lower class. This is because a single ride is only 16 cents in American currency. Some downfalls to these are that there are no seat belts and that there is no disability access, so they do pose as a safety hazard. Due to their size, they contribute to high traffic volumes and high pollution as well. When looking at road conditions in the Philippines, they are subpar to those in comparison to America. There is high vehicle volume for how few paved roads there are in comparison to America as well. With a low score of 44 on the uncertainty avoidance scale, you can see how these factor into their poor and crowded road conditions. There is also a subpar flow of the different kinds of transportation, such as ferries, airports, and other paved roads. In fact, there are active plans to build more airports and ferries, whereas fixing or paving new roads. There are very few functioning plans to fix old roads and pave new ones, and with a very low score of 27 on the long-term orientation scale, seeing that tradition is highly valued, the road conditions and transportation methods are unlikely to change soon. In saying that, the few government-funded projects to fix the roads are currently on hold due to COVID-19 restrictions. As a matter of fact, all transportation methods have been majorly impacted by COVID-19 in the past years. This has caused major amounts of transportation problems, such as getting new resources and people into and out of the country. In the Philippines, road accidents are the fourth leading cause of death, and the country spends roughly $1.9 billion on road accidents alone. In comparison, the roadways and modes of transportation of that we are used to here in America are exactly the opposite of those in the Philippines.